And we'll ditch the international business stories to tell you now that a new report marking 5 years of common African position on asset recovery called CAPAR has called for urgent reforms to make global asset recovery systems fairer and more accessible to African nations. The report highlights persistent challenges African countries face in reclaiming stolen assets held abroad, citing bureaucratic delays, weak international cooperation, and inequitable legal frameworks. So it urges stronger political will, transparent restitution processes, and collaboration between African governments and global institutions. And experts are saying reforming asset recovery mechanisms is vital to supporting Africa's fight against corruption and the strengthening of domestic resource mobilization for sustainable development. So to shed more light on this, I'm joined by Getachew Teklemariam, who's an economist and senior program officer at Coalition for Dialogue on Africa. Thank you so much, Getachew, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so first, let's have an understanding. What factors are actually aiding the stealing of assets in Africa?
Well, so from the perspective of the African Union High-Level Panel on Illicit Financial Flows, 65% of the illicit financial flows are lost to commercial causes. And the remaining 35% comes from criminal activities, and 5% is attributed to corrupt activities. But the whole focus of illicit financial flows deliberations has always been focused on the 5% corrupt channel, while Africa continues to lose significant amount of resources for commercial activities. And that is facilitated through a global financial system that allows that to happen. And Africa continues to be in the disadvantageous position because it continues to be a net creditor to the global economy, while it's losing significant amount of resources, close to 88 billion USD per annum for illicit financial flows, while ODA stands around 60%, 60 billion USD. So we are actually losing significant amount of money. That's way more than the official development assistance that's flowing into the continent. And the causes are really, a large portion of it is commercial activity.
Well, that's quite monumental in terms of losses. So if that is the case, Getachew, why is global asset recovery a major challenge on the continent, despite the international anti-corruption efforts that we've seen so far?
Well, to start with, the global financial system actually is largely dictated by the benefactors of these flows. So the destination countries, countries where the capital is being domiciled, have a significant say in the way the global financial system and the global architecture actually works. So African countries really have a very limited leverage on this system, because it's largely distorted towards the interest of the beneficiary countries and the destination countries. And efforts of recovering these assets has continuously been really challenged because of economic, political, and legal factors. And these factors really relate to, a large part of it largely relates to the willingness of the destination countries to actually allow African countries to trace, identify, and recover assets, even when African countries were able to actually trace and identify. A lot of conditionalities have been imposed by the destination countries for African countries not to recover. In the cases that we have studied, for example, in Nigeria, in Senegal, and in Democratic Republic of Congo, governments have pursued to recover assets, but a lot of legal and diplomatic challenges have have been faced by these countries in their attempts to actually recover assets. So the global system is not really even. It's not conducive for countries who are losing significant resources to illicit financial flows.
So this actually speaks to the reluctance of these countries, recipient countries of these illicit loots, when it comes to having these assets or monies recovered or repatriated from their country to the domiciled countries. But then let's even look at it. How much in stolen assets would you say is currently estimated in terms of the current estimate now? How much would you describe the stolen assets being held abroad from African countries?
There have been various estimates to be being done to kind of really understand the magnitude of resources that are domiciled abroad. I mean, recent estimates show that it's close to $2 trillion. So this is both illicit financial flows, private money that's being domiciled abroad, looking for safe destination in terms of taxes and other regulatory scrutiny, but being done by African countries, and also corporate money that is actually looking for safe havens. So if we add that, it's estimated to be $2.4 trillion. But it depends on the methodology that is being used to analyze capital flows in general. But we can agree that the amount is very significant compared to the needs in Africa in the forms of both provision of social services, provision of basic infrastructure for Africans, and improving the livelihood of Africans. Compared to the amount of resources that are required to actually improve all these things in the continent, the amount of money that is actually domiciled abroad is very significant and way higher than the needs in the continent.
Okay, now two things before I let you go, Getachew. Number one, what specific reforms does the CAPAR report propose to make asset recovery more equitable for Africa? And two, how do we strengthen the frameworks to make it impossible, or should I say harder, for these monies to be looted from Africa abroad? Just in about 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, so the first and important thing is actually to create the institutional, legal, and policy frameworks within the African countries to actually, for the money not to actually go out. So the African Union High-Level Panel on Illicit Financial Flows closely works with national governments to improve their policy, legal, and institutional framework to contain illicit financial flows. Once the money is actually lost and went abroad, the cost of recovery is very, very high. But in terms of reforms required to improve asset recovery, the most important thing is international frameworks like the UNCAC framework, the United Nations Convention on Against Corruption, need to actually acknowledge that resources lost through commercial channels are also recoverable assets. Currently, the UNCAC framework does not recognize that. It's only limited to criminal and corrupt assets lost through these two channels. But assets lost through commercial side is not really recognized within the recoverable assets framework. So I think improving the UNCAC framework is very important, because that is the only abiding legal framework, international legal framework, that provides really the framework for asset recovery. But on the other hand, I think improving the financial, the global financial architecture is also very important. Another very important aspect that we need, and this is actually our own common African position on asset recovery, to actually be sufficiently institutionalized, both at continental and at national level. Yes, we can see improvements, but the challenge ahead of us is really ornamental, and they have to actually be consistent and consolidated.
Of course, we know that corruption knows how to fight back, but then we hope that the framework that CAPAR will be bringing on board will be wholesome and formidable enough to put an end to illicit financial outflows now, and of course see that assets belonging to Africa are fully recovered. Thank you so much, Getachew Teklemariam, Economist and the Senior Program Officer at Coalition for Dialogue on Africa. It was nice talking to you.